Making memories.
With nobody but me.
I've come to terms with the fact that you don't have an average job.
Welcome back to the channel, where today we're diving into one of the most anticipated action thrillers of the year, Nobody 2 released in 2025. This adrenaline-fueled sequel continues the gritty saga of Hutch Mansell, a seemingly ordinary man with an extraordinary past, who once again finds himself dragged back into a world of chaos and violence. Building on the explosive success of the original 2021 film, Nobody 2 is a hard-hitting blend of action, crime, and dark humor that has fans eager to see what brutal surprises lie ahead. Directed by Ilya Naishuller, who returns to helm the sequel, and written by Derek Kolstad, the mastermind behind the John Wick franchise and the first Nobody film. This installment promises to elevate the stakes while diving deeper into Hutch's mysterious past and the cost of his double life. With its slick choreography, brutal combat sequences, and sharp writing, Nobody 2 reaffirms Naishuller and Kolstad's signature style, grounded yet explosive, sleek yet savage. What makes Nobody 2 so significant is not just the return of Bob Odenkirk in a role that redefined his career, but how the film continues to challenge the boundaries of the modern action genre. While many franchises rely on spectacle alone, Nobody brings a raw, character-driven intensity that resonates with audiences looking for more than just gunfights and explosions. The buzz around the sequel is massive, and for good reason. This isn't just a continuation, it's a deeper dive into a world of vengeance, redemption, and the true cost of violence. The production of Nobody 2 began as a response to the overwhelming success and cult following of the original Nobody, 2021. After the first film's surprise breakout, praised for its tight action, dry humor, and Bob Odenkirk's unexpected yet gripping performance, Universal Pictures and 87 North Productions saw an opportunity to expand the story of Hutch Mansell. The idea for a sequel had been in early talks as soon as the original gained traction on streaming platforms, and by late 2022, the script for Nobody 2 was already in development. Derek Kolstad, known for his work on the John Wick series and the original Nobody, returned to pen the screenplay. His goal was to dig deeper into Hutch's backstory while introducing new layers to the criminal underworld hinted at in the first film. Kolstad wanted to explore the emotional consequences of violence and the tension between Hutch's desire for peace and his inescapable instincts. Director Ilya Naishuller also returned, bringing his distinct flair for kinetic action and visual storytelling. Naishuller was committed to preserving the gritty, close combat realism that set the original apart while pushing the choreography and narrative stakes even further in the sequel. One of the most interesting aspects of the production was Bob Odenkirk's renewed dedication to physical preparation. Following a heart attack he suffered in 2021, many questioned whether he would return for such a physically demanding role. But Odenkirk, a former comedian who had shocked audiences with his transformation into a credible action lead, doubled down on his training regimen and worked closely with stunt teams to ensure authenticity in every fight scene. His commitment became a symbol of the film's underdog spirit and earned widespread respect from both fans and industry peers. Casting for Nobody 2 introduced a fresh batch of characters, with new antagonists and allies who challenge Hutch in unexpected ways. While most plot and character details were kept under wraps during production, reports confirmed that the sequel would feature returning favorites, including Connie Nielsen as Hutch's wife Becca, and Christopher Lloyd in his fan-favorite role as Hutch's shotgun-wielding father. There were also a few surprise additions from the world of action cinema, adding star power and combat credibility to the already stacked cast. Filming took place primarily in Canada, with locations chosen for their cold, urban aesthetic that matched the franchise's raw, grounded tone. Naishuller worked closely with cinematographer Paweł Pogorzelski to create a visual language that felt intimate and intense, bringing viewers right into the heart of every brutal encounter. Behind the scenes, the production emphasized practical effects, real stunt work, and minimal reliance on CGI to maintain the film's grounded authenticity. In the end, Nobody 2 became more than just a follow-up. It evolved into a passion project for its creators. The production was driven by a desire to respect what made the original work while expanding the universe in meaningful, character-driven ways. That blend of heart, humor, and hard-hitting action is what continues to set this franchise apart. The journey of Nobody 2 began almost immediately after the success of the original film in 2021. With Bob Odenkirk's unexpected transformation into a full-fledged action star, fans and critics alike clamored for a sequel. Early discussions were sparked by Connie Nielsen, who expressed interest in exploring the backstory of Hutch and Becca Mansell. This curiosity laid the groundwork for a deeper narrative direction. By mid-2021, Derek Kolstad, creator of the John Wick franchise and writer of the first Nobody, began drafting a sequel. Universal Pictures, along with 87 North and Odenkirk Provinciero Entertainment, officially greenlit the project in late 2022. Principal photography kicked off in Winnipeg on August 6, 2024, and wrapped by September 26, 2024. Casting choices reflect a blend of continuity and bold new additions. Bob Odenkirk returns as Hutch, joined again by Connie Nielsen, RZA, and Christopher Lloyd. New faces include Sharon Stone as the villainous Lendina, Colin Hanks as a shady sheriff, and John Ortiz as a corrupt theme park operator. These additions bring fresh energy and complexity to the sequel's ensemble. The director's chair saw a major shift with Timo Tjahjanto stepping in for his American debut. Known for his ultra-violent Indonesian thrillers like The Night Comes for Us, Tjahjanto infused Nobody 2 with a kinetic, stylized brutality while also expanding its emotional core. He aimed to explore Hutch's duality as both a ruthless operative and a conflicted family man. Tjahjanto's vision included brighter, more vibrant settings like the chaotic amusement park, contrasting the grim industrial tone of the first film. Behind the scenes, Bob Odenkirk continued training with the 8711 action design team, pushing his physical limits to deliver more intense fight choreography. Producer David Leitch noted that Odenkirk's dedication allowed the team to craft action sequences that would be impossible with a less committed lead. From its inception to its final cut, Nobody 2 evolved into more than just a sequel. It became a character study wrapped in explosive spectacle. Nobody 2 picks up sometime after the events of the first film, with Hutch Mansell trying to settle into a quieter, more stable version of his life. Having made peace with his past, at least on the surface, Hutch attempts to restore some normalcy with his family while keeping the ghosts of his former life at bay. But peace, as always, proves temporary. When a series of mysterious events begin to unravel in his city, connected by a trail of violence that feels all too familiar, Hutch is once again pulled into a dangerous underworld he thought he had left behind. This time, the threats are more organized, personal, and unpredictable, pushing Hutch into unfamiliar territory. What begins as a quest to protect those he loves quickly evolves into a brutal game of cat and mouse, testing not just Hutch's combat skills, but his resolve, identity, and what he's willing to sacrifice to walk away for good. The tone of Nobody 2 remains gritty and grounded, with bursts of intense, cleverly choreographed action woven into a tightly wound narrative. But unlike the first film, this installment leans further into psychological tension and emotional weight. It explores the cost of violence and the impossibility of fully escaping a life built on secrets and bloodshed. At its core, the story is not just about vengeance, but about reckoning with the past, with choices made, and with the person Hutch has become. What makes Nobody 2 particularly compelling is its blend of raw, visceral action with moments of surprising vulnerability. The film balances its brutal set pieces with sharp dialogue, dark humor, and subtle character development, making it more than just a traditional action sequel. It's a story of a man caught between two worlds, one he built and one he wants to protect, and the ever-blurring line between justice and destruction. In Nobody 2, Hutch Mansell returns 4 years after his explosive clash with the Russian mob, now burdened by a $30 million debt to the criminal underworld. To work it off, he's been quietly carrying out hits on international thugs, all while trying to maintain the fragile balance of his family life. But the cracks are showing. He and his wife Becca are emotionally distant, and their kids are growing up in the shadow of secrets they don't understand. In an effort to reconnect, Hutch takes his family on a nostalgic vacation to Wild Bill's majestic Midway and Water Park, a place tied to his childhood. What begins as a lighthearted getaway quickly spirals into chaos when a run-in with local bullies draws the attention of a corrupt theme park operator and a shady sheriff. Hutch's past resurfaces in full force, and he finds himself hunted by one of the most unhinged crime bosses he's ever faced. The tone of the film is a kinetic blend of gritty action and dark comedy, with bursts of emotional depth that explore the cost of violence and the strain of living a double life. Director Timo Tjahjanto injects a vibrant, stylized brutality into the sequel, contrasting the industrial bleakness of the first film with neon-lit carnage and surreal set pieces, like a Hall of Mirrors brawl and a water park showdown. What sets Nobody 2 apart is its fusion of family drama with relentless action. It's not just about Hutch fighting to survive. It's about fighting to stay connected to the people he loves, even as the world around him erupts. The film deepens the mythology of Hutch's past while introducing new antagonists with twisted motivations, making this sequel a character-driven spectacle that refuses to play it safe. At the heart of Nobody 2 is Hutch Mansell, once again portrayed with quiet intensity by Bob Odenkirk. Hutch is far from the typical action hero. He's a man marked by contradiction, a former government operative with a violent past, now striving to be a devoted husband and father. In this sequel, Hutch's internal struggle is more pronounced. He wants nothing more than peace, but his natural instincts and the world he once belonged to keep pulling him back. Odenkirk masterfully navigates this emotional duality, showing a man who is both deadly and deeply human. His performance is understated but powerful, layering grit with regret and a constant flicker of longing for a normal life. Becca Mansell, played by Connie Nielsen, plays a more prominent role in this chapter. As Hutch's wife, Becca is no longer just a bystander to the chaos. She represents Hutch's last connection to normalcy and stability, but even she begins to question the man she married. Her arc explores the strain of living with someone who is always one step away from violence. Nielsen delivers a grounded, emotionally layered performance, capturing Becca's strength, resilience, and quiet sorrow. Returning as Hutch's father, David Mansell, Christopher Lloyd once again brings charm and surprising firepower to the screen. In Nobody 2, his role is expanded, offering more insight into Hutch's background and the generational legacy of violence that runs through the family. Lloyd's dry wit and effortless presence give the film moments of levity, while still reinforcing the seriousness of the world they inhabit. A new antagonist, whose identity is kept mostly under wraps prior to release, serves as a thematic counterpoint to Hutch. This character is more cerebral, more methodical, a shadow from Hutch's past who challenges not just his strength, but his moral compass. The villain's motivations go beyond typical revenge or power. They're deeply personal, and their presence forces Hutch to confront who he really is beneath the facade of domesticity. The performance is chilling, intelligent, and layered, offering a fresh kind of threat that feels both unpredictable and unsettling. Also introduced are a few key allies, some reluctant, some loyal, who further color the narrative. These characters aren't simple sidekicks. They each bring unique motivations and personal stakes to the conflict, making the action feel earned and character-driven. Their dynamics with Hutch reveal different facets of his personality: humor, loyalty, guilt, and at times, brutal decisiveness. What makes the character work in Nobody 2 so rich is how no one is one-dimensional. Every major player is navigating their own inner conflict, their own version of survival. This depth transforms the film from just another action-packed sequel into a story about identity, choice, and the high price of a life lived in shadows. In Nobody 2, the characters are more than just vehicles for action. They're emotionally layered, morally conflicted, and deeply tied to the film's themes of identity, redemption, and family legacy. Hutch Mansell, Bob Odenkirk. Hutch remains the emotional and narrative anchor of the film. Once a dormant assassin buried in suburban routine, he now grapples with the consequences of reawakening his violent past. In this sequel, Hutch is torn between his duty to protect his family and the thrill of his covert missions. Odenkirk's performance is a masterclass in restraint and volatility. He balances dry wit with raw vulnerability, making Hutch feel like a man constantly at war with himself. His arc explores the toll of compartmentalized violence and the fragility of domestic peace. Becca Mansell, Connie Nielsen. Becca evolves from a distant spouse into a more active participant in Hutch's world. Her motivations stem from a desire to reclaim the intimacy lost to secrets and bloodshed. Nielsen brings a quiet strength to Becca, portraying her as both emotionally wounded and fiercely protective. The sequel hints at her own mysterious past, adding layers to her character and suggesting she may not be as far removed from Hutch's world as once believed. Harry Mansell, RZA. Harry, Hutch's adopted brother, returns as a loyal but morally flexible ally. He's the voice of pragmatism, often pushing Hutch to embrace his darker instincts. RZA infuses Harry with charisma and a sense of lived-in wisdom, making him more than just comic relief. His arc touches on loyalty, survival, and the blurred lines between family and business. David Mansell, Christopher Lloyd. David, Hutch's father and retired FBI agent, is a wild card, equal parts mentor and wild card. Lloyd's portrayal is delightfully unpredictable, mixing grandfatherly charm with bursts of lethal precision. His arc reflects the generational echoes of violence and the cost of passing down a legacy built on secrecy. Lendina, Sharon Stone. As the film's primary antagonist, Lendina is a bootlegging mastermind with a vendetta. Stone plays her with icy elegance and ruthless intent, crafting a villain who's as psychologically complex as she is dangerous. Lendina's motivations are rooted in personal loss and a twisted sense of justice, making her a mirror to Hutch's own internal conflict. Abel, Colin Hanks. Abel, the corrupt sheriff, represents institutional decay. Hanks brings a deceptive calm to the role, portraying Abel as a man who hides cruelty behind a badge. His arc is less about redemption and more about exposure. He's a symbol of the rot Hutch must confront to protect his family. Together, these characters form a web of tension, loyalty, and betrayal that elevates Nobody 2 beyond its genre trappings. Their development adds emotional weight to the film's explosive set pieces, making every punch and bullet feel personal. In Nobody 2, the supporting characters are far more than background players. They serve as crucial threads in the narrative, reinforcing the film's central themes of identity, consequence, and the struggle to reconcile the past with the present. Each secondary character deepens the emotional stakes for Hutch and challenges him in ways that force his character to evolve. One of the most significant secondary figures is Blake Mansell, Hutch's teenage son, who in the first film struggled with understanding his father's passive demeanor. In the sequel, Blake begins to see glimpses of who his father truly is. His growing awareness and curiosity add tension and urgency to Hutch's internal conflict. The father-son dynamic is carefully handled, filled with unspoken questions and quiet emotional distance. Blake's presence acts as a mirror for Hutch, reflecting both the man he wants to be and the one he fears he still is. The performance is subtle but impactful, capturing the vulnerability and confusion of a young man caught between admiration and fear. Christopher Lloyd's David Mansell continues to be a scene stealer. As Hutch's sharp-witted and trigger-happy father, he adds humor, heart, and history to the story. In Nobody 2, his relationship with Hutch gains more depth. Their interactions hint at a past filled with unsaid truths and shared trauma, suggesting that Hutch's path was forged long before he ever picked up a gun. David's role isn't just nostalgic, it's symbolic of the generational cycles of violence and the impossibility of truly escaping that legacy. Lloyd's effortless charisma and seasoned timing bring this dynamic to life with both warmth and bite. Another standout is Harry, Hutch's enigmatic half-brother, whose presence is expanded in the sequel. Played by RZA, Harry brings calm intensity and dry humor to scenes. As someone who knows Hutch's real story, he often acts as the voice of reason or brutal honesty, reminding Hutch that trying to run from who you are is both foolish and dangerous. Their sibling bond is marked by mutual respect, occasional tension, and shared experience in the shadows of their former lives. Harry's involvement also gives the film a broader sense of world building, teasing a history and network beyond what we see on screen. On the other side of the moral divide are the new antagonists, layered, intelligent, and uniquely dangerous. While not traditionally secondary, these characters play supporting roles in shaping Hutch's emotional and ethical journey. Their presence elevates the story from a simple revenge tale to a more nuanced battle of ideologies and personal codes. The casting in these roles is precise, with actors who bring distinct energy and psychological complexity, turning even brief encounters into memorable confrontations. Finally, Becca's role as both emotional anchor and source of tension cannot be overstated. Her reactions, silences, and decisions ripple through the story, grounding Hutch's arc in reality. She represents what's at stake, not just in terms of survival, but in terms of redemption and belonging. Connie Nielsen's quiet strength and emotional restraint provide the film with an emotional core, even when the bullets start flying. Together, these secondary characters shape the world of Nobody 2 into something textured and lived in. Their impact on the narrative isn't just functional. They challenge, deepen, and complicate Hutch's path, making the film feel richer, more human, and far more than just a typical action sequel. Nobody 2 boasts a rich ensemble of secondary characters who do more than fill space. They deepen the emotional stakes, complicate Hutch's journey, and inject thematic nuance into the film's explosive narrative. Eddie Williams, Michael Ironside. As Hutch's father-in-law and former boss, Eddie represents the weight of legacy and obligation. Ironside's grizzled intensity adds gravitas to scenes where Hutch is forced to confront the expectations placed on him by family and past alliances. Eddie's strained relationship with Hutch underscores the film's theme of generational conflict and the burden of inherited violence. Charlie Williams, Billy McClellan. Charlie, Eddie's son and Hutch's brother-in-law, is a wild card whose loyalty is constantly in question. McClellan plays him with a simmering resentment that adds tension to family scenes. His arc explores sibling rivalry and the corrosive effects of favoritism, subtly mirroring Hutch's own internal struggle for validation. The Barber, Colin Salmon. A former government handler, the Barber is a ghost from Hutch's past who reappears with cryptic warnings and veiled threats. Salmon's performance is sleek and enigmatic, offering a cool counterbalance to Hutch's raw intensity. His presence reinforces the theme of unfinished business and the impossibility of truly escaping one's past. Henry, John Ortiz. As the corrupt theme park operator, Henry is both antagonist and symbol. Ortiz brings a sleazy charm to the role, making Henry's descent into villainy feel disturbingly plausible. His manipulation of the town's law enforcement and economy reflects the film's critique of institutional decay and unchecked power. Toby, Daniel McInnes. Toby, a local teen who idolizes Hutch, serves as a mirror to Hutch's younger self. McInnes plays him with wide-eyed admiration that gradually turns to disillusionment. Toby's arc adds emotional depth, highlighting the dangers of glorifying violence and the importance of mentorship. Brady and Sammy Mansell, Gage Monroe and Paisley Catarath. Hutch's children are no longer passive observers, they're active participants in the story. Brady's quiet rebellion and Sammy's precocious curiosity create moments of levity and heartbreak. Their evolving relationship with Hutch anchors the film's emotional core, reminding viewers what's truly at stake. These supporting characters aren't just background, they're catalysts. They challenge Hutch, reflect his flaws, and push the story into unexpected territory. Their dynamics enrich the film's themes of family, identity, and redemption, making Nobody 2 a sequel that punches above its weight. The acting performances in Nobody 2 are a standout element, elevating the film from a standard action sequel to something far more emotionally resonant and character-driven. Led by Bob Odenkirk, the cast delivers a mix of raw intensity, sharp timing, and subtle emotional undercurrents that give the film both grit and heart. Odenkirk once again proves he's not just a capable action star, but a deeply committed actor. His performance as Hutch Mansell is layered with physical tension and emotional restraint. He moves with purpose and weight, embodying a man who's always on edge, but trying desperately to stay grounded. There's a weary wisdom in his eyes, especially in scenes where Hutch is faced with moral choices or when his family is involved. Odenkirk excels at conveying complex emotions with minimal dialogue, whether it's a glance at his son, a tense conversation with Becca, or the calm before an impending fight. His delivery never feels forced. Instead, it's natural and lived in, which is crucial in making Hutch feel like a real person, not a stylized hero. Connie Nielsen brings a controlled, understated strength to Becca. Her chemistry with Odenkirk feels more nuanced in this sequel. The quiet tension between them, sometimes affectionate, sometimes distant, reflects the strain of a marriage weighed down by secrets and unspoken fears. Nielsen avoids melodrama and instead relies on subtle body language and restrained emotion to communicate Becca's internal conflict. One particular dinner table scene, filled with silence, glances, and palpable unease, speaks volumes without needing a single raised voice. Christopher Lloyd, reprising his role as David Mansell, once again lights up the screen. While his performance leans more into comic relief, Lloyd balances it with unexpected bursts of emotional weight. There's a heartfelt moment between David and Hutch where the veneer of casual violence slips, revealing a father who may have passed on more than just survival skills. Lloyd's timing remains impeccable, and his chemistry with Odenkirk carries both charm and generational wisdom. RZA as Harry delivers a cool and grounded performance. He plays the role with effortless confidence, providing a calm counterpoint to Hutch's volatility. His presence is measured, but when he speaks, it carries weight. The scenes shared between RZA and Odenkirk have a brotherly warmth that feels earned, particularly in moments where they disagree on tactics or reflect on their past. Their chemistry adds a subtle humor and heart that prevents the film from feeling too grim. Among the newer cast members, the villain, whose identity is tightly guarded, delivers a haunting performance. Without relying on caricature, this antagonist is calm, calculated, and chilling in a way that contrasts Hutch's raw explosiveness. The dynamic between the two is electric. Every confrontation is laced with tension and unspoken history, leading to several standout scenes that ripple with intensity. As for weaknesses, there are very few. Some of the supporting roles, particularly minor antagonists, lack the same depth or nuance, occasionally falling into familiar action movie archetypes. However, these moments are brief and don't distract from the core relationships that drive the film. One of the most memorable emotional scenes comes midway through the film, where Hutch is forced to reveal more of himself to his family than ever before. The weight of that moment, delivered with restraint by Odenkirk and reflected in the silent reactions of Nielsen and their on-screen children, is a powerful reminder that this story is just as much about identity and connection as it is about fists and gunfire. Overall, the acting in Nobody 2 hits every mark: authentic, emotionally resonant, and perfectly attuned to the film's blend of violence and vulnerability. The chemistry among the cast brings depth to the story, making it feel less like a genre film and more like a grounded, human drama with punches. Nobody 2 thrives on its cast's ability to blend visceral action with emotional nuance, and the performances across the board elevate the film beyond its genre trappings. Bob Odenkirk's portrayal of Hutch Mansell is once again a revelation. He brings a quiet intensity to the role, balancing sardonic humor with flashes of vulnerability. His physicality is sharper than ever, thanks to continued training with the 8711 action design team, but it's his emotional restraint, especially in scenes with his children and wife, that gives the film its heart. One standout moment involves Hutch silently watching his daughter sleep after a violent encounter, his face a mix of guilt and resolve. It's a wordless scene that speaks volumes. Connie Nielsen as Becca Mansell delivers a performance that's both grounded and layered. Her chemistry with Odenkirk is more textured this time around, reflecting a marriage strained by secrets, but still tethered by love. Their quiet arguments and shared glances carry emotional weight, particularly during a tense dinner scene where Becca confronts Hutch about his double life without ever raising her voice. Christopher Lloyd and RZA reprise their roles with gusto. Lloyd's David Mansell is a delightful wild card, and his scenes with Odenkirk crackle with generational tension and dark humor. RZA's Harry brings a cool pragmatism to the chaos, and his banter with Hutch adds levity without undercutting the stakes. Sharon Stone's Lendina is a standout addition. She plays the villain with icy precision, but avoids caricature by injecting moments of grief and twisted logic into her performance. Her confrontation with Hutch in a rain-soaked alley is one of the film's most emotionally charged scenes, two broken people clashing over legacy and loss. Colin Hanks and John Ortiz round out the ensemble with solid turns, though Hanks' sheriff occasionally veers into melodrama. Ortiz, however, shines as the sleazy theme park operator, delivering a performance that's both charismatic and repulsive. The cast's chemistry is most evident in the family scenes. Whether it's Hutch teaching his son how to throw a punch or Becca shielding their daughter during a shootout, the emotional stakes feel earned. These moments ground the film's explosive action in something deeply human, making Nobody 2 not just a thrill ride, but a story about connection, consequence, and the cost of survival. Director Ilya Naishuller brings his unmistakable style back to Nobody 2, expanding on the raw, kinetic energy that made the first film a breakout success. Known for his work on Hardcore Henry and the original Nobody, Naeshler continues to blend hyperreal action with emotional intimacy, crafting a film that feels simultaneously brutal and personal. One of the defining elements of Naeshler's direction is his commitment to grounded, physical action. In Nobody 2, every punch, gunshot, and crash feels tangible. He avoids over-reliance on CGI, instead opting for practical effects, long takes, and carefully choreographed sequences that give the violence a visceral edge. Fight scenes are captured with tight framing and dynamic camera movement, often handheld, to bring the viewer right into the chaos without sacrificing clarity. The pacing in these moments is razor-sharp, with a rhythm that allows tension to build before exploding into controlled mayhem. But Naeshler isn't just focused on spectacle. What makes his direction stand out is how he uses framing and tone to build character and atmosphere. In quieter scenes, he employs stillness and negative space to reflect isolation, doubt, or suppressed emotion. There's a stark, often cold palette to the visuals, mirroring Hutch's internal struggle and the bleak reality of the world he's trapped in. Moments of silence or mundane routine are given weight, showing Naeshler's sensitivity to emotional beats in between the action. The tone of Nobody 2 walks a fine line between grim realism and dark humor, another Naeshler hallmark. He isn't afraid to lean into absurdity during moments of ultra-violence, but it's never at the expense of character or credibility. This tonal balance allows the film to remain intense without becoming exhausting, offering brief moments of levity that feel earned rather than gimmicky. Naeshler's influence can also be seen in the film's structure. He favors a narrative that unfolds with slow, deliberate tension, allowing the viewer to feel the mounting pressure on Hutch before the action fully ignites. This pacing choice mirrors his work in Hardcore Henry, where bursts of explosive movement are contrasted with longer, quieter interludes to maintain a dynamic flow. Another signature is the director's focus on flawed, reluctant protagonists. Hutch, like Naeshler's other leads, is not a superhero. He's tired, conflicted, and sometimes unsure. This human approach grounds the film, allowing audiences to connect with Hutch not just as a fighter, but as a man wrestling with who he is. Naeshler directs Odenkirk with a keen sense of restraint, allowing micro-expressions and small gestures to carry weight, especially in scenes that explore Hutch's guilt, fear, or resolve. In short, Ilya Naeshler's direction in Nobody 2 is an evolution of his signature style: visceral action grounded in emotional realism, visual storytelling that balances intensity and stillness, and a tone that confidently shifts between grit and wit. His fingerprints are all over the film, shaping it into a sequel that doesn't just repeat the formula, it deepens it. Timo Tjahjanto's direction in Nobody 2 is a bold fusion of stylized brutality and emotional introspection, marking a distinct evolution from the first film's gritty minimalism. Known for his ultra-violent Indonesian thrillers like The Night Comes for Us and Headshot, Tjahjanto brings his signature kinetic energy and visceral choreography to the sequel, but with a surprising twist. He trades the industrial gloom for a vibrant, almost surreal aesthetic. Framing in Nobody 2 is dynamic and purposeful. Tjahjanto frequently uses tight close-ups during emotional beats to capture Hutch's internal conflict, while wide, sweeping shots showcase the chaos of action sequences, especially in the neon-lit amusement park setting. His use of mirrors, water, and reflective surfaces adds psychological depth, turning fight scenes into visual metaphors for identity and duality. Pacing is relentless but controlled. The film opens with a slow burn, allowing tension to simmer before erupting into explosive set pieces. Tjahjanto's background in horror and thrillers informs his rhythm. He knows when to linger and when to strike. Scenes transition with sharp edits and rhythmic cuts, keeping viewers on edge without sacrificing narrative clarity. Tone is where Giacinto's influence is most pronounced. While the first, Nobody, leaned into dry humor and grounded violence, the sequel embraces a more colorful, chaotic sensibility. It's much more summery and colorful, as Giacinto himself described, with a heightened sense of absurdity that mirrors Hutch's unraveling psyche. The director balances dark comedy with emotional stakes, crafting a world where violence is both cathartic and tragic. Giacinto's trademarks, brutal hand-to-hand combat, morally ambiguous characters, and stylized environments are all present, but adapted to fit the American action landscape. His collaboration with Bob Odenkirk pushes both artist and actor into new territory, resulting in a film that feels fresh yet familiar. Nobody 2 isn't just a sequel, it's a reinvention, shaped by a filmmaker unafraid to color outside the lines. The screenplay of Nobody 2, penned once again by Derek Kolstad, is both efficient and emotionally layered, a smart continuation of the first film's style with added depth in character and subtext. Kolstad's writing strikes a careful balance between gritty realism and stylized storytelling, crafting a narrative that flows with purpose and momentum while still allowing for quiet, introspective moments that give the film its emotional backbone. From the outset, the story unfolds with a deliberate pace, gradually revealing the central conflict through carefully planted clues and subtle tension. The progression of events feels natural and unforced, allowing characters to drive the plot rather than relying on contrived action beats. The structure is lean, no wasted scenes, no unnecessary exposition, and yet there's a richness to the world and its characters that never feels underdeveloped. This is where Kolstad excels, in building an immersive, believable underworld with just a few lines of dialogue and sharp, economical storytelling. The dialogue throughout Nobody 2 feels authentic to the world it inhabits. Characters don't speak in quips or monologues unless it suits their personality. Hutch's lines are often terse, grounded in realism, with a touch of dry, bitter humor that reflects his inner turmoil. His interactions with Becca are filled with tension, sometimes strained, sometimes tender, and much of the emotional weight is conveyed through what's left unsaid. The subtext in these exchanges is powerful, hinting at unresolved fears and the burden of secrets, all while maintaining a grounded, believable tone. Kolstad gives each character a distinct voice. Harry, for instance, brings a calm, philosophical edge to his dialogue, often acting as a counterbalance to Hutch's intensity. Becca's words are measured, occasionally cutting, and reveal a woman caught between loyalty and disillusionment. Even supporting characters, like the primary antagonist or Hutch's son, Blake, speak in ways that reveal their motives, insecurities, or suspicions without heavy-handed exposition. What sets the screenplay apart is its use of silence and subtext. Many of the film's most effective scenes feature minimal dialogue, relying instead on looks, pauses, and carefully chosen words. Kolstad understands that in a story like this, what isn't said can speak volumes. This technique is especially effective in building suspense and emotional complexity, allowing viewers to engage more actively with the narrative. The writing also injects subtle commentary on violence, identity, and legacy without becoming preachy or overly philosophical. These themes are embedded in the story's structure and character arcs, emerging naturally through the choices characters make and the consequences they face. If there's one minor critique, it's that some of the secondary villains or henchmen don't receive the same level of attention in their dialogue, occasionally falling into cliché territory. However, these moments are few and do little to detract from the overall strength of the screenplay. In the end, Nobody 2 benefits from a screenplay that knows exactly what it wants to be: tight, intelligent, emotionally grounded, and always in service of its characters. The dialogue crackles with authenticity, the story moves with confident purpose, and the script never loses sight of the emotional core that makes Hutch Mansell's journey worth following. The screenplay of Nobody 2 is a confident evolution from its predecessor, expanding the narrative scope while sharpening its emotional and thematic edges. Written by Derek Kolstad, Aaron Rabin, Umair Alim, and Bob Odenkirk, the script balances high-octane action with introspective character beats, creating a rhythm that's both relentless and reflective. The story flows with deliberate escalation. It opens with a subdued domestic tension, gradually unraveling Hutch's fractured psyche and the strain on his family. Each act builds with precision, layering conflict and consequence until the explosive climax. The pacing is tight, with minimal filler. Every scene either deepens character or propels the plot. Transitions between domestic drama and brutal action are seamless, often punctuated by moments of dark humor that feel earned rather than forced. Character voices are distinct and consistent. Hutch's dialogue is terse, laced with dry wit and emotional restraint. His lines often carry subtext. He says little, but the weight of his past echoes in every word. Becca's voice is measured and emotionally grounded, revealing her inner turmoil through subtle exchanges rather than exposition. Lendina, the antagonist, speaks with icy precision, her dialogue dripping with menace and moral ambiguity. Supporting characters like Harry and David inject levity and wisdom, their banter adding texture without derailing tone. Subtext plays a crucial role. Conversations between Hutch and Becca are loaded with unspoken history, and even mundane exchanges hint at deeper fractures. The screenplay uses silence effectively. Pauses, glances, and unfinished sentences convey as much as the spoken word. This restraint adds authenticity, making the emotional beats resonate more deeply. The writing feels authentic throughout. It avoids cliches and leans into character-driven storytelling. Even in heightened moments, like Hutch's explosive monologue in the Hall of Mirrors, the dialogue remains grounded in his emotional truth. The film's humor is sharp but never undermines the stakes, and the action sequences are supported by dialogue that enhances rather than distracts. Overall, the screenplay of Nobody 2 is a masterclass in tonal balance. It's brutal, funny, and emotionally resonant, with dialogue that feels lived in and purposeful. It doesn't just tell a story, it lets the characters bleed through every line. The cinematography in Nobody 2 is a masterclass in visual storytelling, seamlessly blending gritty realism with stylized tension to mirror the film's dual nature, grounded character drama wrapped in visceral action. Shot by cinematographer Paweł Pogorzelski, known for his work on Midsommar and Hereditary, the film uses its visual language to deepen mood, character insight, and narrative intensity. Camera movement is one of the film's most striking elements. In action scenes, handheld shots dominate, pulling viewers directly into the chaos with a shaky, immersive style that heightens tension without losing clarity. Long takes and fluid tracking shots follow Hutch through narrow corridors, city streets, and confined interiors, creating a sense of urgency and claustrophobia that matches the stakes. These sequences are intimate and brutal, avoiding flashy over-editing in favor of kinetic choreography that feels raw and physical. In contrast, quieter moments are framed with still, composed shots that emphasize emotional isolation and internal conflict. Wide shots are used sparingly but effectively, often placing characters alone in large, empty spaces to highlight their loneliness or detachment from the world around them. Close-ups are used with precision, capturing subtle shifts in expression that reveal more than dialogue ever could, particularly in Hutch's silent reflections or in wordless exchanges between family members. Lighting plays a crucial role in setting tone. Much of the film is bathed in cold, desaturated tones, grays, deep blues, and muted browns dominate the palette, contributing to a bleak, wintry atmosphere that reflects Hutch's internal turmoil. The lighting often feels naturalistic, especially in domestic scenes, where soft ambient light casts gentle shadows and gives a sense of lived-in reality. In contrast, action scenes and nighttime sequences adopt harsher lighting, dim fluorescence, neon signs, flickering bulbs to create tension and disorientation. These transitions between soft and harsh lighting mirror the push and pull between Hutch's desire for peace and the violence he's forced to confront. The color palette remains largely subdued throughout, reinforcing the grounded aesthetic of the film. Occasional bursts of color, flashes of red, orange, or green, are used symbolically or to draw attention to moments of danger, emotional intensity, or memory. For example, a specific warm tone may be used in a flashback or a family scene to evoke a contrast with the cooler, more hostile present. This careful use of color supports the film's themes of memory, consequence, and duality. The shot composition also serves the story with thoughtful symbolism. Hutch is often framed through doorways, mirrors, or fractured reflections, underscoring his fragmented identity and divided life. Scenes involving family members are composed with distance or obstruction, furniture, walls, or frames often separating characters within the shot, visually reinforcing emotional distance and unspoken tension. Overall, Nobody 2 uses its visual elements not just to showcase action, but to tell a story with depth and purpose. The cinematography doesn't merely capture the narrative, it shapes it, enriching the emotional undercurrents and enhancing the stakes at every turn. From brutal close-quarters combat to silent moments of reflection, every frame feels intentional, stylish, and powerfully aligned with the film's core. The cinematography in Nobody 2 is a visceral extension of the film's emotional and thematic core, transforming every frame into a reflection of Hutch Mansell's fractured psyche and chaotic world. Camera movements. Callan Green's cinematography embraces kinetic motion to mirror Hutch's internal turbulence. Fight scenes are captured with handheld intensity, often using whip pans and tracking shots that follow Hutch through confined spaces like elevators and Hall of Mirrors mazes. These movements heighten the immediacy of violence and immerse viewers in Hutch's reactive mindset. In contrast, slower dolly shots are used during family scenes, creating a sense of emotional distance and quiet tension. Shot composition. The film frequently uses asymmetrical framing to emphasize imbalance. Hutch is often placed off-center, visually reinforcing his disconnection from domestic life. Wide shots of the amusement park juxtapose its cheerful chaos with Hutch's brooding presence, while tight close-ups isolate characters during moments of emotional strain. Mirrors and reflective surfaces are used symbolically, fragmenting Hutch's image to suggest his dual identity as father and assassin. Lighting. Lighting plays a crucial role in setting tone. Domestic scenes are bathed in warm, natural light, evoking a sense of nostalgia and longing. In contrast, action sequences lean into harsh, directional lighting, neon glows, strobe effects, and flickering fluorescence that create a surreal, almost nightmarish atmosphere. The Hall of Mirrors fight is lit with pulsing reds and blues, amplifying the psychological tension and disorientation. Color palettes. Timo Tjahjanto's vision introduces a more vibrant palette than the original film. The amusement park setting allows for saturated primaries, reds, yellows, and blues that clash with Hutch's muted wardrobe, visually highlighting his alienation. Flashback sequences use desaturated tones and sepia filters to evoke memory and regret. Villainous environments, like Lendina's bootlegging lair, are drenched in deep purples and metallic hues, suggesting decadence and menace. Visual storytelling. The film's visual language is rich with metaphor. Hutch's journey through the amusement park becomes a twisted pilgrimage through his own past, with each ride and attraction echoing a piece of his fractured identity. The use of improvised weapons, arcade props, mascot heads, and water park tools adds a layer of absurdity that underscores the film's dark humor. Visual callbacks to the first film, such as Hutch's watch and basement hideout, serve as anchors for continuity and emotional resonance. Nobody 2 doesn't just rely on spectacle, it uses cinematography to deepen character, amplify emotion, and turn every punch, glance, and shadow into part of Hutch's ongoing battle for redemption. The production design of Nobody 2 is both functional and thematic, carefully constructed to ground the film in a world that feels lived in, tense, and emotionally charged. From the urban sprawl to the interiors of Hutch's home, every element of the set design is built to reflect the characters' inner lives and the violent duality at the heart of the story. The sets are realistic and deliberately unpolished. Hutch's home, for instance, is modest and quiet, filled with subtle details that speak to his attempts at normalcy, family photos, half-used tools, and signs of domestic routine. Yet there's an undercurrent of tension in the way rooms are sparsely furnished or dimly lit, suggesting a life never fully at rest. This visual restraint mirrors Hutch's internal struggle, trying to blend into an ordinary world while constantly haunted by who he really is. The home becomes a symbolic battleground between peace and the threat of destruction. The production design of the city itself reinforces this atmosphere. Urban environments, bleak alleyways, grimy warehouses, weathered storefronts are captured with texture and grit. Nothing feels overly stylized, and yet each space adds to the narrative weight. The settings are often cold, industrial, and isolating, evoking a sense of moral decay and unpredictability. Abandoned buildings and underground locations serve not just as action set pieces, but as visual representations of the shadows Hutch must walk through to protect what remains of his normal life. One standout location is a derelict office building repurposed as a hideout, filled with rusted metal, broken glass, and flickering lights. It's a place that feels like a forgotten corner of society, exactly the kind of liminal space where a man like Hutch would operate. These set choices help create a tone of inevitability and darkness, visually reinforcing the themes of hidden truths and the high cost of redemption. Costume design is equally thoughtful. Hutch's wardrobe continues to reflect his dual existence: simple, muted clothing that blends into crowds, yet durable and ready for sudden violence. His look is intentionally unremarkable: plain jackets, faded jeans, worn boots. But the wear and tear in his clothing, the subtle stains and scuff marks, tell their own story of a man constantly on the edge. Becca's attire is refined but grounded, suggesting a woman who values stability and composure. Her look contrasts with Hutch's, reinforcing the emotional and ideological gap between them. Meanwhile, their children wear modern, neutral tones that speak to a middle-class lifestyle untouched, at least visibly, by the blood-soaked reality of Hutch's past. The antagonists, by contrast, are given distinct silhouettes and more striking wardrobe choices, subtly designed to reflect their backgrounds or philosophies. Whether it's a tailored coat, a symbol-laden accessory, or a militaristic outfit, their costumes enhance their presence without becoming overly theatrical. These choices help distinguish them visually and emphasize the psychological edge they bring to the narrative. Across the board, the production design, sets, and costumes in Nobody 2 serve as quiet storytellers. They never pull focus away from the action or the characters, but instead immerse the audience in a world that feels harsh, unforgiving, and deeply personal. These elements work in harmony to enhance the film's tone, reinforce its themes of duality and consequence, and build a visual identity that stays consistent with the raw, grounded nature of the story. The production design of Nobody 2 is a vibrant departure from the industrial grit of the original, crafting a surreal yet grounded world that mirrors Hutch Mansel's fractured identity and emotional turmoil. The sets are a visual playground of contradiction. Wild Bill's majestic Midway and water park, the central location, is a kaleidoscope of Americana nostalgia, complete with rusting roller coasters, neon-lit arcades, and dilapidated mascots. This setting isn't just backdrop. It's a thematic echo of Hutch's lost innocence and the chaos lurking beneath surface-level joy. The park's design blends retro charm with eerie decay, creating a space where violence feels both absurd and inevitable. Interior sets, like Hutch's family cabin and the villain's bootlegging lair, are rich with texture and symbolism. The cabin is warm but cluttered, reflecting the emotional distance between Hutch and Becca. In contrast, Lundina's lair is sleek and metallic, bathed in purples and silvers that suggest opulence corrupted by criminal enterprise. Costumes play a subtle but powerful role in character development. Hutch's wardrobe is deliberately muted earth tones, denim, and flannel, emphasizing his desire to blend in and suppress his violent past. As the film progresses, his clothing becomes more tactical and worn, visually charting his descent back into chaos. Becca's outfits shift from structured and professional to more relaxed and utilitarian, signaling her emotional thaw and growing involvement in Hutch's world. Villains are dressed with theatrical flair. Lundina's wardrobe mixes vintage glamour with militaristic accents, fur-lined coats, leather gloves, and sharp silhouettes, projecting both elegance and menace. Abel, the corrupt sheriff, wears dusty browns and faded blues, evoking a twisted version of small-town authority. The production design, sets, and costumes in Nobody 2 don't just support the story, they amplify it. They turn every location into a psychological battleground and every outfit into a narrative clue, immersing viewers in a world where violence and vulnerability collide in vivid, unforgettable ways. The musical score and soundtrack of Nobody 2 play a vital role in shaping the film's identity, enhancing emotional depth, intensifying the action, and subtly guiding the audience through Hutch Mansel's fractured world. Scored by David Buckley, returning after composing the music for the original film, the soundtrack is a blend of atmospheric tension, pulsating rhythms, and carefully chosen needle drops that echo the film's themes of inner conflict and explosive release. The score is deliberately restrained in quieter scenes, allowing space for tension to breathe. Sparse piano notes, low-frequency drones, and ambient textures create a haunting atmosphere that lingers in the background, reflecting Hutch's constant unease. These subdued moments are not just filler, they heighten the emotional impact by drawing the viewer into the psychological space of the characters, particularly in scenes where Hutch wrestles with guilt, isolation, or dread. When the action kicks in, the score transforms. Buckley employs a mix of distorted electronic sounds, heavy percussion, and sharp strings to build suspense and deliver energy that complements the choreography. The music doesn't overwhelm the visuals, it rides just beneath them, adding urgency and rhythm to the movement without distracting from the clarity of the scene. In some cases, the tempo of the score directly mirrors Hutch's pacing in combat, creating a synchronicity that makes the sequences feel immersive and fluid. One of the standout features of Nobody 2's soundtrack is its use of curated tracks, retro, eclectic, or thematically ironic, that bring a unique flavor to key scenes. Much like the first film, this sequel continues the tradition of placing unexpected music over brutal action, creating a surreal juxtaposition that captures the absurdity and stylized violence at the heart of the series. A peaceful vintage tune playing over a chaotic brawl, for example, adds both humor and a twisted sense of detachment, reminding us that Hutch operates in a world where normalcy and madness constantly collide. These musical contrasts also help define Hutch as a character. The quiet, melancholic compositions reflect his longing for peace and family, while the louder, more chaotic cues underscore the storm that brews just beneath his calm surface. The music becomes an extension of his internal struggle, a character in itself that tracks his emotional and physical journey through the film. There are also moments where silence is used as powerfully as music. In scenes of confrontation or decision-making, the absence of score leaves room for raw tension. The quiet becomes deafening, forcing the audience to lean in and feel the gravity of each moment. This use of negative sonic space is deliberate and effective, offering contrast that makes the next swell of music hit even harder. If there's a critique to be made, it's that while the score is consistently strong, a few of the licensed tracks, though well-placed, feel slightly less memorable than those in the first film. However, the overall cohesion between score and soundtrack is still impressive, and each piece serves its purpose in the larger tapestry of sound. In summary, the music of Nobody 2 is a carefully composed blend of mood, rhythm, and emotion. David Buckley's score, paired with the film's stylized soundtrack selections, not only supports the story, but elevates it, making the emotional highs more poignant, the suspense more gripping, and the action more thrilling. It's not just background noise, it's an integral part of the film's DNA. The music score and soundtrack of Nobody 2 are a dynamic blend of orchestral tension, retro flair, and emotional resonance, crafted to amplify the film's chaotic energy and introspective undertones. Dominic Lewis, known for his work on Bullet Train and The Man in the High Castle, takes over scoring duties from David Buckley, bringing a more eclectic and stylized approach to the sequel's soundscape. Lewis's compositions lean into dissonant strings, pulsing synths, and percussive bursts that mirror Hutch's fractured psyche and the film's unpredictable tone. His score is especially effective during action sequences, where rhythmic motifs build suspense and then explode into frenzied crescendos, matching the choreography beat for beat. The soundtrack itself is a curated mix of classic rock, pop remixes, and ironic needle drops that inject humor and nostalgia into the carnage. Tracks like Lindsey Buckingham's Holiday Road and Elvis Presley's A Little Less Conversation, JXL remix, play over scenes of escalating violence, creating a jarring but intentional contrast that underscores the absurdity of Hutch's predicament. These choices reflect director Timo Tjahjanto's flair for tonal whiplash, using upbeat music to heighten the surrealism of brutal encounters. Emotional beats are underscored by more subdued selections. Amy Winehouse's Back to Black and Etta James's Something's Got a Hold on Me accompany scenes of reflection and regret, grounding Hutch's journey in melancholy and longing. These tracks don't just fill space, they deepen character moments, allowing viewers to feel the weight of Hutch's choices without overt exposition. The musical choices also enhance the film's setting. The amusement park sequences are scored with carnival-inspired cues and warped fairground melodies, turning familiar sounds into eerie accompaniments for chaos. This sonic distortion mirrors the visual surrealism and reinforces the theme of corrupted innocence. Overall, the score and soundtrack of Nobody 2 are integral to its identity. They don't just support the story, they shape it, guiding the viewer's emotional response and elevating the film's genre-blending ambition. Whether through ironic juxtaposition or raw orchestral power, the music leaves a lasting imprint on the viewer's experience. The sound design and special effects in Nobody 2 are meticulously crafted to reinforce the film's gritty realism, heighten tension, and immerse the viewer in the raw, physical world that Hutch Mansell inhabits. Every sound, whether it's a footstep on broken glass, a muffled breath before a confrontation, or the unmistakable click of a weapon, is chosen with precision to draw audiences deeper into each scene. One of the most striking achievements of the film's sound design is its focus on physical detail. Punches land with weight and texture, sharp, bruising, and distinctly painful. Gunshots vary depending on the weapon and environment. They ring out in closed quarters with thunderous echo, or crack sharply in open spaces. These elements are not exaggerated for cinematic effect. Instead, they are finely tuned to feel authentic, enhancing the film's grounded tone. The brutal, up-close nature of the fight scenes is amplified by layered sound effects, grunts, bone impacts, weapon scrapes, that make every sequence feel visceral and personal. Environmental sounds also play a crucial role. Background noise is used to build atmosphere, dripping pipes in an abandoned building, the low hum of a street lamp, or the muffled ambience of a suburban home at night. These subtle details help establish mood and setting without calling attention to themselves. In tense scenes, sound is often pared back to minimal elements, allowing the silence, or the sudden intrusion of a sound, to create suspense. For example, the build-up to a fight might be marked by the slowing of ambient noise, followed by a single sharp cue that signals the violence to come. When it comes to special effects, Nobody 2 continues the franchise's commitment to practical over digital whenever possible. Explosions, shootouts, and fight choreography are largely done in camera, with stunt work and physical props creating a more tactile experience. Visual effects are used sparingly and subtly, primarily to enhance blood splatter, debris, or background elements, not to dominate the frame. This choice preserves the film's grounded tone and prevents it from slipping into stylized fantasy territory. When digital effects are used, they are seamlessly integrated. For instance, environmental augmentation, such as adding snow, smoke, or digital enhancements to destruction, blends smoothly with the live-action footage. There's no visible disconnection between real and rendered elements, which keeps the audience immersed and never distracted by artificial visuals. Another standout in the sound department is the dynamic range used throughout the film. Quiet moments are truly quiet, allowing for reflective breathing space. When the action explodes, the sound design doesn't just get louder, it becomes more layered. Bullet casings hit the ground with clarity, bodies slam into walls with crunching realism, and vehicles roar with believable mechanical texture. The transitions between calm and chaos are sharp but smooth, mirroring the internal rhythm of Hutch's emotional state. Overall, the sound design and special effects in Nobody 2 are finely tuned to reinforce the film's themes of tension, duality, and raw consequence. They don't just support the narrative, they help tell it. Through meticulously crafted audio and carefully restrained visual effects, the film delivers a sensory experience that's as emotionally grounded as it is physically intense. The sound design and special effects in Nobody 2 are meticulously crafted to heighten tension, amplify realism, and inject bursts of surreal energy into the film's chaotic narrative. Sound design. Dominic Lewis's score is complemented by a layered soundscape that immerses viewers in Hutch's volatile world. Gunshots are thunderous and visceral, each one echoing with emotional weight. Fight scenes are punctuated by bone-crunching impacts, rustling clothing, and ambient destruction, creating a tactile sense of violence. The Hall of Mirrors sequence is a standout, with distorted echoes and spatial audio that disorient the viewer, mirroring Hutch's psychological unraveling. Environmental sounds play a key role in building atmosphere. The amusement park hums with warped carnival music, distant screams, and mechanical clanks, turning a place of joy into a sonic nightmare. During quieter moments, subtle cues like creaking floorboards or the ticking of hutches add tension without dialogue, reinforcing the film's theme of time running out. Fantasy and surreal elements are enhanced through sound manipulation. Scenes involving hallucinations or emotional flashbacks use muffled audio, reversed effects, and low-frequency drones to blur reality. These choices deepen the psychological complexity and make Hutch's internal struggle feel tangible. Special effects. Visual effects are seamlessly integrated, serving the story rather than overwhelming it. Explosions, blood splatter, and environmental destruction are rendered with gritty realism, avoiding the glossy sheen of typical action blockbusters. The water park showdown features slow-motion sequences where water droplets and debris swirl around Hutch mid-fight, emphasizing both beauty and brutality. Digital enhancements are used sparingly but effectively. For example, the Hall of Mirrors fight employs subtle CGI to extend reflections and create impossible angles, heightening the surreal tension without breaking immersion. Practical effects dominate, with real stunt work and pyrotechnics lending authenticity to the chaos. Together, the sound design and special effects in Nobody 2 elevate the film's emotional and sensory impact. They don't just support the action, they shape the viewer's experience, making every moment feel immediate, unpredictable, and deeply personal. And that wraps up our review of Nobody 2, a sequel that not only delivers on the brutal action fans loved in the first film, but also deepens the emotional journey of its characters in powerful, unexpected ways. Whether you came for the bone-crunching fight scenes, Bob Odenkirk's magnetic performance, or the gritty storytelling, this film has a lot to offer, and we'd love to hear what you think. Did Nobody 2 live up to your expectations? Was the action more intense, the story more personal? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're always excited to hear your take and continue the conversation with fellow movie lovers. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to hit that like button, it really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our latest reviews, deep dives, and exclusive film content. We've got some exciting videos coming up, including our next review on The Equalizer 4, a spotlight on underrated action thrillers, and a breakdown of iconic cinematic fight scenes. So stay tuned, there's a lot more on the way. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.